the best for that need. One thing as a village person we have to look at when we make decisions is, how do we gather that information to make that decision? Is it fact-based? Is it what's needed? And then, what's the financial burden to the residents of our village? I want to make sure we stay as a village too. Don't want to become a city. That's one of my biggest complaints on that. But that's my background, and that's what and plus a volunteer. I, along with JR here, we volunteer for every single thing in this village that there is. I don't think anyone can know anything more about the village and its people than JR and myself. But we're a lot of founders and things. But that's my background.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just so you all know, it sounds as if we are now back and up and running live. So thanks for persisting, Ken. Okay, we're going to go to question number 3. Actually, this time I'm going to start down at this end of the table with Bonnie. What is your understanding of the function of council as it relates to village business?
Well, tactically, you oversee the operation of all of the functional departments. I mean, Public Works Department, Police Department, whatnot. Approve staffing and budget decisions. Help set direction, for the year for them, and obviously, provide input when they're looking to make decisions. Strategically, my understanding is the council, sets policy and overall goals for the year for the village in general, including all of the village operations, and with budgets, and then partners with our various boards to make sure that, and oversees the services and programs that they provide to make sure that they are meeting the needs of residents.
It's a good answer. I just say same as her.
Thanks, Bonnie. We've got 6 people, so yes, don't feel obliged to repeat.
Well, she pretty much just described everything. So, well, very similar answer to what she has said. I mean, part of the council is the voice for the people, and what council does is council takes the voice of the people, and then they go back and they listen to that voice, and then they work with Nathan, they work with CBA and all the other boards, and they try to make the best decisions possible moving forward. A good council should be looking 5 years in advance. It's not next year should have already been solved. It's 5 years from now. It's 10 years from now. That's what a good council should be doing, and I know that's what you are doing, because we do have a good council. Working with the police department, working with DPW, which I think is very important for this village. I think it's a very good selling point for this village is we have our own police department, the DPW. They do a wonderful job. So that would be my answer. I think just continuously working forward with all of our boards and establishing budgets and looking into the future to make this a great place.
Bob, same question?
A little bit of mine, a little bit of hers.
It's all rolled up into one. Well, the big thing I found in my years here is knowing the people, okay? Not being on council, I know Nathan to a degree, but when I was on council past, I knew the administrator, okay? I know the DPW people. I know the police chief and a number of the officers. I don't know them like I did before when they were delivering the stuff to the little box out front, okay, and you would chat and things. But I still know them. They wave, I wave, we talk. It's the community. It's being involved in the community, okay? It's knowing that if John Doe, who lives across the street, has a complaint about the snow plowing, and if you are on council and things come up and questions, you might bring it up and not necessarily pinpoint that person, but someone suggested that this is a problem when the plowing's being done or when the grass is getting cut at the park, whatever. And it's a matter also of knowing the people that are running these departments. It's just useful and helpful. And it's being able to go ahead and say to your neighbor, hey, it's not going to change. This is the best thing. If you have a better idea, bring it up yourself. Just to stay in touch with the other council people and the board people, and naturally the administrator and the attorney also, because there are things that happen that we all, as that board, part of that board, need to know that are going on.
Danny, same question. What's your understanding of the function of council as it relates to village operations?
To me, council's job is to make sure it sets the overall direction of the village, is what council does. Whether that's the present, whether it's the future, and it's learning from the past. It sets a direction. Now, how do we do that? Number one, we start with the open dialogue with all the residents and among board members. And that is an open, honest dialogue. Sometimes feelings will get hurt, but that's healthy. That's how we learn from things. That's how we get discussions going. You got to have thick skin. I'm used to having screaming Teamsters at me and stuff like that they don't like change. And usually it's when I made a change. That's when they become the most irate. People don't like change. They don't like being pushed out of that comfort zone. But that's what you have to do as managers. And you have to explain to them. They may not like it, but at least they'll understand it. So the Village of Council, after we do that, you deal with all the agencies whenever you want to make a decision too. What does it play? Its part in that. Once you collect your data, then what is put a finance cost to it? Then what is that burden on to the village members? And discuss that openly. And I think that's what our job is.
All right. Dixie, same question?
I actually looked it up today because I thought, well, I really want a good understanding, and basically it's kind of like what everybody said, is we're doing the best for the community, considering everything and trying to, within budget. But one thing I know is that nobody gets paid. They're all here because they want to help,
Well, in all fairness, we do get $5 a meeting.
You do?
Yeah.
I did not know that. You need a
Maximum of
raise.
four.
You
Maximum
need a
of four.
raise.
Maximum of four.
Maximum of four.
Yeah.
Big money.
Fifth one's free.
Yep, but up to
Can I
$20
ask?
a month.
Can I ask why?
It's part of the charter. And within the charter and just governmentally and generally, there are a lot of good reasons to have your elected officials have a small amount of money that they get for their job. It compensates them for some of the things that they do, some of the time that they spend. It tends to.
Gas money.
It tends to bring out sometimes better candidates, even just a little bit of compensation. $5 was set about 35 years ago in there. And just so everybody knows, in the charter amendments that we're going to send forward, we're actually going to look at creating a charter commission to look at getting our council salary a little bit more in line with surrounding communities, similar villages, none of which will make anybody wealthy off whatever that eventual amount might be. But there is a small amount of money involved, and
Just
That's not what my-
informational,
Yeah.
Dixie, when I first came on here, I don't know if Bob was involved, it was $1 a year.
Yeah.
$1?
Is that right?
But you gave
How
yourself
about
a
that?
Help
raise.
the increase.
Pardon me?
You gave yourself a raise, Ed.
Yeah. Big one.
Well, that's not what my Google search said. And I don't know if it said anything on the bottom about Wolverine Lake. Well, thank you for that information. Obviously, nobody's in it for the money.
you aren't going to make minimum wage very often.
Well, thank you for all you do. Obviously, I was thinking about, when I said I want to make a difference in Wolverine Lake, I want people to know, where Wolverine Lake is, rather than the place up north that's Wolverine Lake or whatever, but.
Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine, yeah. I had a single small group at our church, and I, at one point, had 350 emails. And I have no problem asking people to get involved. And I'd like more people to get involved, and I'd like to do more charity work. But I think that's what the board is that, you try to do what's best for everyone. With a budget.
Within a budget. And JR, same question.
I'm so happy that Bonnie and Craig went first because you summed it up really, really well.
I did.
And Bob, you're right. You need to know your community. I think everyone up there knows their community real well. They know the residents. They get out, talk to people. We appreciate that. I know what you do often is a thankless job in many cases, but there are many residents that thank you immensely for working for $5 a meeting and not getting all the credit that you deserve. And that goes for anyone that's served on council. I hope that we're all acting without personal reasons. I believe you are, and I think that's what it takes to be on the council. And you have to have love for this community, and I think we all do. I think we've all voiced that. Yes, working with the police and all of the boards, of course, as they summarized already, important. Key, though, loving this community, and I know you all do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We're on to next question, and this time I'll start with Craig, and we'll move down that way. So what decision-making process would you use on issues coming before council?
Well, I mean, obviously, you'd like to gather as many facts as you possibly can. Then listening to your constituents, listening to what you think the people would want, listening to what the public would say during open meetings, listening to fellow council people and hearing everybody's opinion. And then at that point, once you gather all the facts, you make the best decision possible, based on where you want that question to go. It's really all you can do is just really base a decision based on fact. And if you don't base a decision on fact, I don't know how you get to that decision. If it's not based on fact, how are you making that decision? And sometimes those decisions are tough. Council makes tough decisions almost at every meeting. I know I sit on ZBA. We have to make some tough decisions based on fact, and I can tell you it's not very popular sometimes. But, unfortunately, and I've heard other gentlemen say that you have to have thick skin, and that's part of being on council. So to sum it up, I would say base all of your decisions, if you're going to be on council, base it on fact. Don't base it on what somebody else might tell you, but base it on fact. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. My decision-making process has been pretty simple. First thing I do is make sure that myself and anyone else involved in this discussion has the same understanding of what it is we're trying to decide. Like, do we have the same objective here, and what outcome we're looking for? Not the result, but the process. What are we deciding on? A dollar figure? Are we deciding on an action? What are we trying to figure out? Then absolutely information gathering. Might add to that some research, to make sure that the facts that we're getting are supplemented by any other background information. I always try to put down a few alternate paths and understand where those paths may lead us, because it may lead you to someplace you didn't think you wanted to go that really turned out to be the best decision. So I try not to be myopic and consider several solutions. And then after you've made your decision and taken your action, I always like to do, for lack of a better term, a postmortem to make sure that, was the decision we made, did it come out the way we thought it did? If it didn't, what can we learn for next time? How can we change the process to get a better result? Or did it come out as our expected and good for us? So that's my process.
All right. JR?
I think Bonnie interviews really well.
I
I've
can
been
tell
in
you-
HR for 20 years.
I
She's
can
done
tell.
an interview or two.
I think I would add to what everyone's saying is that I would try to get opposing opinions too, if that is the matter at hand. Try to understand from both perspectives, the different points of view. Certainly, we have to consider budget issues at times, but definitely listening to the residents and negotiating amongst the council people, and research and understanding what's going on, yes.
Dixie, decision-making process.
Could you repeat the question? please?
Sure. What decision-making process would you use on issues coming before council?
Decision-making, okay. I think it's important to learn the needs of the village first and what we're dealing with. I know we were talking about a soccer field for a long time, and, that didn't go through because of what the people were voicing. There was, conversations on both sides, but in the end, we decided not to do that. So I think it's, just a long-term, sometimes debating of what is best for the village. Finding out facts, talking to people, listening to people. Thank you.
All righty. Danny, same question?
Okay. Craig, you gave a great answer, I figure. Nice job on the.
Thank
one
you.
did. And that is on fact-based decisions. Know your subject. Definitely know your subject. Research it. Get every agency involved in that one item that you're dealing with. Like you talked about road striping, get the road commission involved, get this involved. If you're about the water, get the DNR involved. Get the proper agencies, whoever those people are involved, and find out what they got to say, their needs, their wants, their concerns. Then, once you gather all that information, how does it pertain in a cost, as JR mentioned, to financial situations? There's all that. But make sure it's fact-based. Fact-based is the key word. There's no guessing. People will call you out in a minute, and you'll lose your credibility. Fact-based, and you do that by homework. Thank you.
Would you repeat, please?
Sure. What decision-making process would you use on issues coming before council?
Well, as a council person, I'd sit there and ask the question of, why is this here? I mean, is it here because of a whim or a case of this one likes this and that one doesn't, or whatever it would be? And then do your research, like has been mentioned. And then also, if the administrator's involved or the attorney's involved, see what kind, or even your controller, Mike, who isn't here today, our treasurer, okay? And if it's something involving dollars and cents, does it fit into our budget? If it makes sense, does the budget have room to go ahead and take from general funds to make something happen? Find out, as everyone has said, the total reasoning for what we're going to accomplish or why we're going to accomplish it.
All right. Next question. In order of priority, please rank the 2 or 3 most important issues you feel are facing the village presently. And I think this time we'll start with Dixie and we'll move back that way. So, Dixie, what are the 2 or 3 most important issues you feel are facing the village presently?
2 or 3 issues facing the village. I'm on the water board, so I guess that's coming first to mind, which is, trying to do what's best for the lake and the new weeds that are seeming to come in, the red cray snapper, is it? That's invading Novi Lakes. That's kind of scary. As far as other things in the village, I guess I think about, are drugs a problem in the community? I have kids in school. The roads. The roads are concerning.
All right. JR.
I would say taking us in the right direction, our 5-10-year plan, definitely the clarity of the lake, the condition of the lake. Those would be the main 2.
Okay. Bonnie?
I'm with them, definitely clarity of the lake is number 1. Number 2, I would say our village infrastructure, the Benston and Commerce walkways, the village entrances. We have such a beautiful community, and we have a couple of village entrances that don't reflect that. It really, they don't, I don't think they do our community justice at all. And there are some areas that, as we know, aren't quite as safe for some of our folks to be and enjoy the lake and the area as they could be. So that's probably number 2. And number 3 would be, I know we're working on the staffing issues with our Public Works and Police Department because they do such a phenomenal job. And I want to make sure that, we're giving them what they need so that they're safe and effective and can provide us with what we need, but, be safe and well cared for in their jobs too.
Craig?
Well, to me, we're called the Village of Wolverine Lake. The lake is and will always be the priority for everybody here in the village. Whether you live on the lake or don't live on the lake, as that lake continues to improve, the values of everybody's property continues to improve, which is what we want. There are still many, many things that can be done in that lake to improve it, and I know it seems like it's an ever-moving target, because every year I understand there's different weeds, there's different things that need to be done. So there's never a perfect system. There's never a system that you can put in place and say, this is it can go for 10 years. Secondly, I would say the second thing, in my opinion, would be is DPW and the police department. It is such a great thing to be able, when it snows, to be able to get out of your driveway and go on. Unfortunately, sometimes Benstein's not plowed, but at least Del Monte's always plowed. And I don't know how Del Monte gets plowed as quick as it does, but it is nice to drive through a community today, for example, and I was through a few communities today, where it looked like their DPW or wherever they plow their snow, these roads had not been touched. Where you drive through our village and it's been cleared. Those guys work hard, and I appreciate everything they do. And same with the police department. It's nice to see officers driving by and they wave and they know you and they roll their window down. And on Halloween, they were driving around passing out candy. That is such a great thing about this village, and I don't think it gets publicized enough. And I'd say probably the third thing would be is our park system. We have a great park. I know there's been some debate I know there were some things that, we were going to expand and do some different things, and I don't know all the details. Mark and I have talked about it a little bit on ZBA, but I think the park is like a little untapped gem. I think we can do things with that park because it's such a great park, and I think there's other little parks in the community as well that I think if we keep improving those, we'll only improve this village as well. Thank you.
I'm going to ask the question again.
Oh, yeah.
It's been so long.
In order of priority, please rank the 2 or 3 most important issues you feel are facing the village presently.
All right, well, number 1, I would think one of our biggest expenses of the program for the future is our roads. Okay? Our roads are very important because without the roads being up to standard, it deteriorates and takes away from the housing, which also takes away from your accessibility to the lake. We have a fantastic lake board who's going to stay on top of things for the lake. And the lake here in Wolverine, Village of Wolverine, is not going to be neglected, okay? But we also have to set a standard for all the other things involved to make that lake what it is. I was here in '79 when they had the huge drawdown, and I operated on one end for taking out stumps. I had a boat with 5 props because every weekend when I went out with the kids, I'd destroy one, all right, and it'd have to go in to get repaired. Well, you don't have that anymore. It was a point where you could walk across the lake with the weeds. You don't have that anymore. You're never going to get rid of them total, but we're working on it. We're always working as a goal. So the lake is going to be taken care of. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. But it's the other infrastructure items and also the boards, when I say boards, the people on the zoning and parks and recs and historic. And then you have your management team, Nathan and all his employees and your police and all the police volunteers. When we have the fireworks, all these things. I know I've gotten beyond 2 or 3, but all of that is such an important factor to make this whole community whole. Thank you.
All right, and Danny, same question, 2 or 3 top priorities?
Yeah, I have several here. I think one of the most important one, and people have mentioned it, is the water, but all the chemicals that we put in the water. I am very, very concerned and leery of that. It seemed like 2 to 3 years ago, there was a sign in my yard every other day with a yellow sticker on it saying they're putting more chemicals in it. And I was leery, being a gentleman that works 12 and 14 hours like all of you, I couldn't investigate it as well. Luckily, I ran into Mr. Scott. He explained it to me very thorough, very honest, and how it was going to be put in, and it would recess back. Didn't mean I liked it, but I understood it. But he explained it to where I understood it. Didn't make me I was leery. We still do that. It's people swim in that thing. Our swimming holes are packed. And everyone loves our swimming holes. But what is it doing to the fishing in the lake, too? I don't want to see dead fish float around like we were seeing 2, 3 years ago. But that's fixed, and I understand the algae problem. When I first moved in here, my next-door neighbor, John Coxeter, we talked about the Greenway drain all the time. Come to find out, all the sediment from the roads and stuff. You gave a presentation on one that made me understand it even more. But that's important. That's what we need to get in front of the public on those concerns. My next concern for the village, I think, expansion. We are a 1.69 square miles village. I want to make sure we stay village status. As Dixie mentioned, we had the thing about the soccer field. I don't want to see that. I don't want our parks taken away. I don't want to see our parks sold so residents can move in. This is our village. People love our village. And I want to make sure we stay in the village status. That's important. And the last thing, we need to get more volunteers. Our volunteers is what make our village, makes it happen. Ed, you have mentioned on many council meetings, hey, I need to see people out there, and I want to see people involved from the council. You got me to go to the cornrows for the first time. There's nothing I haven't volunteered for from its original start with that man right there. We've done many of them, but I've never done the cornrows. The only thing the village does, best thing I ever did. I ran into Phil Peters, walking his dog, I'm walking my dog. He, come join me, you can cook hot dogs and corn. I had a great time, and I'll be there every time. I got to cook with Monique and her sister from France. Here's a lady from France on vacation who donates her whole day to help us, and I just thought that was great. And Ed, you're correct. We need more volunteers. Where'd I get that also? G. Mikowski. You ever talk to G. Mikowski for 25 years? What's he always say? Get the young people involved. Get the young, and he's right. He's right. I work at St. William's Church in the kitchen for Lent and all that. What do we all say? It's always the same people. Get young people involved. So I'm going to be a recruiter. When we started doing the barge, from the implementation of the barge, and this man would send out an email, excuse me, when JR would send out that email, it's the same 7 people showing up all the time. And that was back in 2005. Well, those 40-year-old guys turned 50, and then some of us turned 60. You send out another email how we needed volunteers. Now on July 3rd morning, boy, he's got 35 people right there helping dads with young sons and that, and that's what we need to motivate and contribute to that, and to let people know just how important that is. Look at our village packing party, how that has turned out. Started out with only 100 people. Today it's packed with kids running everywhere, and that's my favorite event of the year. But still, that's my concerns for the village, of my 3 concerns.
All right. Now what we're going to do is, the next one's going to be a bit of a follow-up question. We'll just go sort of back reverse order of how we just went. And it's, what would you propose is your solution to the issue you ranked as most important in the previous question? And that really involves, so how would you, if you were on council, address that, try to work through it? So in your case, the
I'll
lake
start.
and chemicals.
Sure. Mine was the water in the lake. Well, number one, now that I have the time, get involved with the water board and that, just as you council people are liaisons to those boards. You're the message that you bring back, so you can come up with the resolutions to any of the problems that you have. David, you're on the part. You become involved. Understand it more, get involved with the agencies and everybody involved. It's just not your opinion. There's many, many opinions, and good, because they have the research, they have the data that you're looking for to absolve. So, number one, set the example, get involved, is what I do.
All right. Bob, same question. How would you address your number one issue on council? And yours was roads.
Oh, mine was roads, correct. Well, being on the finance committee, this is something that, we've talked, and Mike Powell's involved there also. And his 5-year program, which was brought up by other people here, 5-year programs on different things, we have that already on the roads. And it's such a plus when you look at this community and see that our millage is, 9.156 or whatever it is, and hasn't changed since the 90s. And we've been able to maintain this road program, okay, off of that budgeted amount, because council and everyone involved has worked at looking down the road. So listen to me, when there is something to come up, it isn't a disaster. It's been planned for, it's been looked at in advance, and we will continue to do that to keep our DPW can't plow a disaster. Because if it's all broken up and there's this problem and that problem, you wouldn't see them cleaning street corners like they were, and I was howling at them today because I'm on a lot. But you wouldn't see that happening, okay, if the roads weren't maintained in a proper way. And roads, again, that leads us throughout this community. Leads us to the water and to the parks and the pocket parks, to your driveway and his. Well, can't his, you don't live here. Yours and yours. But it's an important thing here.
It allows our administrator to drive to the village
That's
office.
true.
Craig, same question to you. How, lakes was your top issue. How would you address that through council?
Well, with obviously not having a bunch of facts on the lake in regards to what we can do, I mean, what I would say initially is I'd like to try, and very similar to what the gentleman had said about the chemicals we use in the lake, is there a way that we can go more natural? Do we have to put as many chemicals? Because I agree, I see those yellow little signs in my backyard. It feels like it's twice a week, but I know that it's not, but it feels that way. I have to tell my daughter, oh, no, honey, we can't go into the water today because and we can't go in, we can't sprinkle the grass. Again, I don't have all the facts to tell you exactly how to do that. That's how I make decisions, and I've said that a few minutes ago. But in my opinion, that would be: is there a way to do less chemicals, more natural? I know we have a big muncher that we've purchased. Is that something that we use more? I don't know. I don't know the facts, but I would definitely find out those facts very quickly. Thank you.
Bonnie, also, you were lake as a top
Yes,
issue. How would you address
We're
that?
water babies. As I said, I don't have the chemical knowledge of, the chemicals used in the lake and that kind of thing, but I think one piece that we may be missing in controlling what's going on with the lake is it's just things I've seen. I see new people moving onto the lake who, don't follow the rules about fertilizing their lawn right up next to the lake and those kinds of things where, we as residents are contributing to the problem instead of the solution. The two-stroke motors, I don't know that pollutes the lake, but it sure pollutes the air, on the boats. The things that, maybe we could put together some kind of a neighborhood or a community effort, partly information, partly action, where they can, understand what they're doing to the lake and the real ramifications of it and things they can do in their own dock areas, to alleviate the weeds. And that, I have to believe over a relatively short period of time, that would certainly impact the greater good of the larger body of water.
Okay.
Okay.
JR, same question. I think your top one was actually planning.
Following the planning.
Yep.
I realize we have a planning commission, but I think it's important that the council make sure that the community understands our 5 to 10-year plan, whether it's the roads or the parks or the water. Water will always be the central issue here, but letting the community understand what's going on with the 5-year plan so that we don't run into the circus that was revolving around the parks earlier in the summer. I think the council handled that very well, but I think a little more information out there. I know you tried, I know we tried email, posting it, everything. But getting the word out can help drive those issues where everyone hopefully comes together on the plan. There's always going to be people that don't go along with the majority, but communicating what the plan is, I think, is vital to the community so that everyone gets on board. So you can, those issues are community building instead of decisive like they were last summer. I think that's very important.
All right. And Dixie, you were the lake, so on council, how would you address that?
We had a really good meeting last time that we got together for the water board. I'm going to be working with John Scott to talk to the DEQ and the DNR about trying to get a permit to go lower with the aerators. We're not getting a lot of help from the DNR about the history of the aerators, which makes me a little concerned about why they won't let out that information. We said in the beginning that we'd give it 5 years. It's been 4 years, so we kind of want to try to do the best that we can with the aerators since we paid for them. You know, they're $1,600 a year to use for electricity. So we're going to try to go deeper to see if that will have a greater effect on the lake. We're going to find out how much the permit is and how long it'll take to get it, and you know how many they issue if we can get one. I do know that when I first got on the water board, that's exactly what I wanted to do, is not use the herbicides as much. But I did learn, I think my pet peeve is that we didn't get the harvester out there fast enough. But I learned that you get it out there too fast, then you cut the weeds, and then the weeds sprout again. It's basically like seeding the lake when you cut the weeds off, because you can't like get all of them and put them in a pile. So you can't get that close to the shoreline, so then you have to use the chemicals. So, you know, we're trying to do as much as we can on the lake. It's a weedy lake. It was made from farmland. So we're trying to do as much as we can as far as the lake. I told you I have a teenage daughter. She said there's a lot of drugs in the school. It's hard to find someone to hang out with that doesn't do drugs. And she's in a lot of things that, you know, charities or whatever, making blankets for Habitat for Humanity and stuff like that, you would think would be kids that wouldn't be using drugs. But, I mean, they're starting to legalize drugs, so it's hard to teach kids that you're not supposed to use drugs, even though other states are using drugs. So that's why that's a little bit on my heart. I'd like to work with the police department on trying to do a little better with that. The roads are very concerning. I just spent $500 to replace a shock in my car because I hit a pothole. So that's hard because I realize the plows, the salt, and we're not gonna be able to do anything. They're bad right now. You have to wait till the weather's better, so you don't, So I don't know what the answer is there, but I would hope that we could find something, because there's a lot of potholes around the city. So,
All right.
thank you.
Just as a quick follow-up, if you see a bad pothole in Wolverine Lake, please call the village and let us know. We do try to get the DPW out to patch them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I did call on Ladd Road, and they did come right out.
Okay.
That one that was my strut.
That is what is known as the pothole tax.
Yeah.
All right. Next question, we're getting to the close, we're getting close to the end here. So, this time I'll start with Bob and we'll go that way. Is there something that you would like to express that has not been previously stated that reinforces your position as candidate of choice? Is there something else? What should we know when we consider this decision?
Well, yeah, I have the 10 years' experience. I am committed to the community. There's no doubt about that. You see me in the audience, not at all meetings, but a good majority. You know, I had gotten off council originally because when I retired, I had a daughter that lived in Phoenix, Arizona. So my wife and I became those snowbirds. But unfortunately, she got a job transfer to Boise, Idaho.
Not as appealing in February?
Right. Although I talked to her today and it was 52 degrees, but again, I'm not going to go there to help her shovel snow when I got my own to do. But no, I'm committed to the community. I always have been. I always will be as long as I'm able to be here and enjoy the place I live. You know, I live on a corner lot. My wife and I take very much pride in that corner because I have 3 other people and we maintain it and it helps other people maintain theirs. You know, when you come down Thurston and you get to Ellington and you make that turn, well, geez, I get so many people that comment, you know, and there's nothing spectacular, but it's neat and it's clean and it's ours. And that represents the rest of the community. You know, if the guy way back in the corner don't want to take his trash cans in for 3 days, that's not my problem. Mine go in, okay? I want this community to stand up for equality like it has for years, and that is my commitment here.
Great.
Similar to Bob, you know, kind of piggybacking a little bit off what he's saying there, part of the reason why I want to be on council is I want to see this community grow and become better. We've had some unfortunate incidents in the past where, you know, the village has been kind of dragged a little bit through the mud. And sometimes it's not necessarily our fault. I would like to see that change, being that I've been here for a little over 20 some odd years. It's a great place to live. There's good people, but a lot of people still don't know about us. And, you know, I think a part of my agenda would be is to try to get that word out, because this is a great place. And by us doing the things we need to do, we can improve this village to the point where it could be the nicest place to live in Southeast Michigan. Thank you.
Harvey, same question?
I guess what I want you to know that we haven't talked about yet is just that, you know, I have dedicated most of my life to bringing people together, having really robust, sometimes loud, but always productive discussions. You know, getting discussions turned into actions and really, you know, building relationships with people in the process, not destroying them. It's one of my strongest assets, and I really want to bring that skill to the council. I want to support all of you in the great work that you do. I would love to be part of it. And, you know, like I said, my husband and I moved here 7 years ago, and we signed the papers on the house the week before we got married. And it was the ugliest house in the lake. And I told him, I said, if you ever doubted if I loved and respected you, it was the day we signed the papers on that house, because he had a vision, you know? And I've never regretted
I saw
it.
their house before they moved in.
Yes.
She's got some pretty to say.
I'm not exaggerating, but I bring the love of the community, like just I love the community, and I think a skill set that could really get some great things done with the community, and I appreciate your consideration.
Chair?
I'm so proud of this community and proud that everyone came out today for this position. As I said in the very beginning,
says a lot, doesn't
I
it?
didn't think anyone was applying. I've listened to all of you speak today. Bonnie, great job.
Thank you.
Craig, I don't know you, but you're my down-the-road neighbor, and I look forward to getting to know you.
Sure, absolutely, love to.
Bob, my old-timer friend, Danny, my neighbor, and Dixie, I'm really proud. Bob, I think, Bob or Craig, you mentioned wanting to get the word out about Wolverine Lake. I've tried my hardest to get everyone in the world to know about Wolverine Lake, and we are putting ourselves on the map. We are. Mostly for good. Yes, there's been a few blemishes, but we'll get by those, and that's why I'm here. I wanted to make sure we get past that right away, and people know about Wolverine Lake. You'll be surprised wherever you go in this country, people will say, oh yeah, I do know Wolverine Lake. I didn't know about it before I moved here 26 years ago. But we're getting a lot of recognition, positive recognition. And, and I'm Citizen of the Year, so that's why.
Not officially.
According to Nate yet.
Now people
Just
will
kidding.
know.
Just kidding.
All right, Dixie.
And, I mentioned before that when I say Wolverine, like, nobody knows where it's at, but I talk to people at the airport too, so maybe, I don't know, that's why, I don't know.
There's plenty of people at the airport that know Wolverine Lake.
Yeah, a lot of them just like, where is that at?
So,
Anyway.
Dixie, same question to you. Is there something that you would like to express that has not been previously stated that reinforces your position as candidate of choice? Is there something else we should know?
Thank you. Along with JR, I wanted to say that I'm really proud that there are so many people here, and I kind of think that we're all committed, and I'm sure that wherever they're fit, wherever our fit, wherever my fit is, we'll figure out, how we can do the best and good for our community. I don't really want to change Wolverine Lake Village. I just want to bring people together and get them to help out, and, everybody wants to be needed. So I think we can try to find places for everybody. But I have a real estate license. I've sold real estate for a long time. My broker always said to me that I seem to zero in quickly on what people need and want. And I like to work with people. I like to get the job done. I like to be productive. And this is fun. This is a lot of fun for me.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Danny,
Great.
What else
Thanks for
should
the
we know?
question, John. I was just gonna add, when they said if you ask someone and they don't know what Wolverine Lake is, ask them if they know JR. Yeah, I know him. Everybody knows JR. But one thing is,
The person I met.
get back to the question that you asked, John. I have time. Showing up for being a council member is not showing up for just a meeting. There's research involved, in-depth, being active, and you show your activeness through, Ed, you had mentioned being a volunteer for stuff. You set the example. So it's work. And I couldn't do that when most of the people when we worked. But being a volunteer person, it's a lot of work involved. Research, know your subjects. That's work. So that's basically what I'm throwing. Thank you.
Final one of our preset questions, and we'll just start down here and go through. This council seat will be up for election in November, just so everybody understands. If you're appointed, the council seat comes up for the next election. If appointed, are you committed to running for the office in November? So let's start down here.
Yes.
Yes.
A definite yes, because I have the time to put it.
Definitely. I would.
Yes.
I am, yes.
All right.
I'm sorry, Bob.
I thought that one might be a quick answer. Okay, with that, let me open it up to council questions for any or all of our applicants.
Geez, I wish you guys would come to the meetings. It
You're on
makes-
YouTube, it's perfect.
It makes a difference when we have people in the audience that aren't complaining or unhappy because there's a dog that stops on their lawn every day, and why can't we do something about it? No, I think we have an excellent selection. It's not going to be easy to whittle this down to one. And please, if you don't get it, there's always some place that, one committee or another, or someplace that we can use some more people to help out. So, thanks again for showing up.
Thank you.
That was a good suggestion.
I had a couple questions that I want to ask. One was kind of a specific follow-up with Andy. You mentioned wanting to keep us keep us a village and not become a city. And I just wanted to ask, is this, in particular with the governmental differences between villages or cities, or is this really more the concept of we're a village, we're a small, tight-knit community, and that's the way you want to see us stay?
That is correct.
Okay. The other question I had, just in general, was on parks, and I was wondering, what folks know of what we have been doing so far in the master plan with Clara Miller Park, and, if you have any suggestions, if you have any thoughts about what we're doing with parks, either in Clara Miller or the neighborhood parks. And I guess it's kind of an open question, so I guess I'll start down here with Bonnie, and we'll just move this way.
I have sort of a love-hate relationship with soccer. I don't have kids in school, so, and I came up before soccer nobody cared about soccer. It was just football, basketball, and baseball. So, I don't see the big attraction, but I understand it's, I don't have anything against, making a park, accessible to some of the local leagues and things, because it's important. I think keeping kids in sports and busy is so important, especially when, like Dixie was talking about, the drug problems we have and stuff. The busier they are, the less time they have to do all that stuff. So I'm all about that. I do have some empathy for the residents around the park. I live, completely opposite of the park, so it doesn't really affect me, but I have empathy for them, and they were talking about the traffic issues and, all that kind of thing. So, I was hoping there would be some kind of a meet in the middle kind of thing, but it sounds like it's either two fields or nothing. So I guess from that perspective, I would like to see them put it someplace that's not quite so residential. Where there's a little more open land. I think there's some opportunities in commerce. I think that probably, coming into this a little late in the program would probably be my thought.
All right.
I always thought of a park as more of a gathering place, for a lot of it obviously for children. I can tell you, I don't have as much information. Mark and I have talked a little bit about the soccer fields when we sit at our ZBA meetings. I do think there's a place potentially for it, but I do think there are things we can do at the park to make it a better park and make it more of a gathering place. I have a 5-year-old, and we go there frequently, and to meet people that come to that park, you would be amazed. The people that don't live in the Village of Wolverine that come to that park because of that park.
Over 50%.
I would say probably more. And we've met some really, really great people that they live in White Lake, or they live in Milford, or they live in Farmington, and they just don't feel they have as nice of parks there. Now, I've not frequented those parks, so I couldn't tell you if they're nice or not. But that being said, there are things that we could do in that park, make the swings a little bit nicer, make the teeter-totter a little bit nicer, but, that's for a different day. But to me, a park is a gathering place for the community, and I think we could make it better and look forward to hopefully doing that.
All right. Bob, same question, just impressions of parks.
I think the parks are fantastic. I live in Spring Lake Heights. Like I say, I've been involved. We have a park there that I put up against any park in this village, okay? We get people, they're down there with their chairs and sunning and everything else, and you walk up and say, geez, where do you live? Well, I live over in Novi, or I'm here from White Lake, or we're here from Detroit. Geez, I'm glad you like it, but this is a private park for our subdivision, okay? So I have to ask you to leave, and naturally I don't give too good of comments, but that's life. Then I look at our park system, and I think we're doing a fantastic job working on these pocket parks. The only annoying thing to me is we've got one on Armenia, we've got one on Oak Island. Let's finish them. The Armenia one's been going on for how long? Let's get the equipment we want in there, the shrubs, the trees, whatever, and be done with that park, okay? Then start the third one. And while you're doing that, naturally, there's gonna be a big hoop-de-doo and everything going on for Clara Miller because it needs a facelift. There's no doubt about it. But our pocket parks, we started this thing. Let's finish the two we have. Then possibly start a third one somewhere. They could probably use one over off Lakeview if there's some property to be had. We're gonna, as a council or a community, we're going to beat this Clara Miller thing to death until it is decided with the public and the council and the administration and naturally the attorney, because they're all gonna be involved, at what's gonna work for Wolverine Lake. So let's get those others done. Let's concentrate on that. And also the next little pocket park somewhere. That's important stuff to this community. You know, you had neighbors say they didn't like children, that's why they moved on this quiet little street. But you know, none of us were born grown up. Okay? Kids, children, your grandkids, your kids, whatever the case, yourself need these little parks as a place for an out. You know, if you go to work or you're retired like I am, you're 24/7 with a lovely lady, you know, you need to get to the park. Okay? And we need this. It's important for this community. It brings this community, brings neighbors together. Clara Miller is great. I have nothing against it. It's fabulous. I'm glad I don't live in a house that backs up to it, because if there are major changes, I wouldn't be happy. But again, it's gonna be resolved somewhere. We're gonna come up with a plan that makes everybody happy. Let's finish the ones we started. I'm sorry, I talked too long. But I'm adamant.
Danny, same question. Really, what are your thoughts about our parks, what we've been doing as a community with both the Clara Miller Master Plan and the neighborhood parks?
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. I know the council has put up several master plans on what they would like to do. And I also realize how important the parks are to our community by when something was suggested about the soccer field, you saw the turnout that came. It was a tremendous turnout. The parks are that valuable. Now, as for myself, I live by myself and I don't have children. So I could not say, I want this done to the park or something particular, because I don't have children to be associated and know how they feel, how they understand. So this was something I would have to vote for, what's best for the village. And that's what I would want for our parks, is what's best for our village.
Dixie?
I really appreciate you bringing up that question, because I think that's such a big part of Wolverine Lake is our parks, our lake accesses, and our bike paths. I think it's amazing what you've done. I see people walking by my house all the time. It's a beautiful place to walk. There's very pretty scenery around Wolverine Lake. I know you're trying to connect with the bike path with blanking out now what you're trying to connect it with, but you know, that bike path is amazing. I'm very proud to live here, and you know, I'm very proud to when I have people over to go for a walk and they see everything, you know, that is around the lake. When we were talking about doing the soccer, my first thought is I'm a real estate agent, so I'm thinking about money. Oh yeah, people eat before they come to the soccer game, and they'll eat after the game, so it'll bring a lot of money in for the community and stuff. And then, you know, when we started talking about it, that's not what the people wanted here. They wanted peace and quiet, you know. So I quickly changed my mind to think, okay, this is a beautiful, quiet, nice place to live. It's a village. That's what people want. I appreciate all the work you've done in the park. Thank you.
My understanding was the master plan was just that, what's the maximum we could do in Clara Miller? That was my understanding. Certainly from the brushback from the community, there's a majority that doesn't want everything done at once, and I don't think that ever was the idea, and maybe that was the big miscommunication among many of the residents. I think if you're upfront and you're communicating what the slow plan is for growth in that park and the neighboring parks, the community parks. I think you'll get the positive feedback, and I think you can finish what you started. Follow the plan. But again, there was so much miscommunication and just rumor going around about the master plan. And I don't know that it was communicated well up front. Certainly, we all, the parks are huge for our community, but no one wants major soccer fields in Clara Miller. Not that was ever the plan, that was just the dream. If we had $1 billion, what could we do in that park? Again, I think it comes back to communicating, making sure people understand the plan, and then executing the plan.
All right, and just so everybody knows, with the master plan, we've had our consultant take a look at it after we had our, the upswelling of opposition to the soccer plan. And really, at the time that came, we didn't even have the master plan in hand. We just put the first map up, and
And then it all.
Generated all the fun.
Events took shape of their own. But, we held a public hearing after that. We've gone back with our park consultant. He's working on a revised master plan. We should have it back in the next month or so. We'll hold another public hearing, get more feedback, and then see if we've got a plan that we can go with. And really, the idea of that plan is to be a plan for 10 or 20 years, so that, we're not going to build everything year one.
Right.
But we can say, here's the plan, here are the things we'd like to work
Directionally
on.
correct,
The phases.
Here are the most important things, let's do these things first. And also, generally pretty important for being able to put in grant applications to say, we want to put this playground equipment in, it fits with our vision, and here's how, so.
Right.
So that's where we are in that process. Good. All right, anybody else on council? Questions? I think we're probably at the point of selecting somebody. Before we start that discussion amongst ourselves, let me say to all of you, thank you again for applying for this job. And I'm not saying this to puff you up or blow smoke. We've had quite a few of these openings now over the years that I've been up here. This is by far the best, most complete, deepest panel we've ever had apply. So thank you, but we can only pick one, so it still comes to that. And there are a lot of different ways we can go after this, but I think probably the best is, let's see if we, let's maybe go through us and see if we have a candidate that we would prefer, and that might get us to a reasonably quick. No, we're gonna do it all in open. But I'll start us out. I think what I was looking for here was a couple of things. First of all, losing Mike, though Mike lived on the lake, I thought he was a great voice for people who lived off the lake. He had a lot of connections in the community. So it was important to me, I'd like to hear an off-lake voice on the council. I also think we're long overdue to have a woman on the council. I think.
Yay!
Yes. And the other thing that I really was looking for is somebody who can hit the ground running, who can start right up and hit it. And given all of that, I think probably the person who at least does well on 2 out of 3 of those anyways is Bob. So Bob would be my preferred candidate.
Putting on a woman. Yeah, well.
Sorry.
I don't
Nice hit, Bob.
I don't think this is a good way to do it, because I'm sure a lot of us have 2 people they'd like to pick from, and if we could communicate upstairs and decide, well, why is this person better than other? I have,
Ed, we can only go into closed session if we have a request to review the credentials in private. We haven't had that for this meeting, so
okay.
it's gonna be an open, and folks are gonna hear it. So, other folks, do you have a preference?
I agree with
It's
you.
it's a tough
There's
decision.
6 really good people. and it's hard-
I
it's
agree
hard
with
to
you. I
make
agree
a
with
snap
you
decision
that-
like that.
That, Bob has the past tenure and the knowledge, and that was the point that I made when we were last time looking for somebody, and for some reason, everybody recused him but me, but I agree that Bob would be, for the time that's left, 8 or 9 months would be the obvious choice.
Other thoughts?
I would have to say JR in terms of, with the fireworks, what is it, upwards and onwards committee you're on. The amount of similar people that you know and the similar role that you would play that the vacancy ultimately had, I think it's a comparison, so that's what I would vote for.
I think that Bonnie and John, Bonnie, you're female, and we would
I
like to
am,
have
yes.
a female.
Thank you for
Bonnie, get
noticing.
an
Regardless,
Mm-hmm.
you took over a house that was a disaster,
Mhm.
and you live on the lake. It seems like you've done this before. JR.
Different types of settings, yes.
JR, I think, was the only one that understood about where we were with the master plan, which means I think that we need to work on our communication better with what has happened and what's going to continue to happen with the Park and Rec Board. And I'm liaison to the Park and Rec Board. So after this meeting, we'll figure out how we can get the information out a little bit better. Some of the information,
I think there was also, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think there was also some purposeful misinformation that was being spread.
There,
Social media
that was happening at the time,
Yeah.
and so we backburnered a bit, but
Yeah.
as we get ready to have it back, let's make sure we communicate clearly about it.
yes, let's be more clear in the future, because you six are probably more educated than most with current events in the village, and some of the stuff that's coming back is a little bit off, or even it's been taken care of many, many months ago. So, Dixie, you're already on a board.
I'm on two.
Yeah, you're on two. But
But
I would be
that
between
doesn't
John and Bonnie,
disqualify
and
my-
Bob's been coming to me. I've been involved with the board since, I was on the Water Management Board since 2013, I think. And Bob's at every council meeting, I think, that almost everyone, if not everyone. And Danny, thanks for coming out. I know you were in charge of a large corporation and managed a lot of people. But I think that Bonnie's energy or John would be my two.
Gotta pick one.
Brian?
Well, I guess I would really be hopeful that all six of you that came tonight, you know there's only one spot. So I would hope to see the other five, or maybe all six, run in November for the same spot. Last time we had, the last election, there was four of us filled for four positions. Seems like everybody wants to be involved here. It would be really nice, like I said, to see everybody come up and run next time. It's a tough decision tonight, it really is.
This is the hardest I've ever,
And I guess, if I could ask you all again, if you didn't get on tonight, would you be willing to run in November?
They all said yes.
they all said they'd
Yeah,
run
all
if
said
they were,
yes.
if they were on the board.
Yes.
If they were on the board.
So slightly different
Slightly different
question.
question.
Let's go left to right. If you don't get, are you willing to run in November?
Yes.
I'm not a quitter. Yes, absolutely.
Danny?
Yes, I would have to look at all the situations as it is now, absolutely.
Lord willing, I'm still
That's
with
right,
you
that's
all.
what I mean.
Yeah, I would definitely.
Yes, yes, I would.
I would, yes.
Okay.
Good. Still doesn't make it any easier.
No.
No, it doesn't.
That's gonna be a full ballot come November.
I hope you guys understand the position that we're in right now, looking at six
Okay.
candidates like.
I guess.
I can't
the reason
believe
I asked
John's
that question
making you
was
do
the
this.
fact that-
Yes.
I-
Was the fact that
Yeah.
to fill a council position with 9 months to go, it does make sense to have somebody that has some experience, and Bob does have the experience. He's been on the board a lot of years. So I guess that was why I phrased the
budget's
question
coming
that
up.
way. It's not very, I mean, we're talking about a short term here, and it would be good to have somebody that's been in a position, or at least is aware of all the things that go on at council level, so.
It was kind of a decisive factor for me, and I like each one of these candidates that we have.
Absolutely.
This is a great problem to have.
Yes,
It is.
Bob's been through the budget process, he's been on the finance committee. Essentially, budget is the thing we do this year between now and the election. That's the process, and I think Bob would be a real asset there. Somebody else, it would be a good opportunity to learn the process, so there's that, but. Well, it sounds like we have 3 out of the 5 concur on a preferred candidate. Do I hear that in the form of a motion?
So moved.
Support.
So, motion to appoint Bob Malik to fill out the council term ending in November 2018. Motion Sinkwitz, second Nedrow. Further discussion?
Again, thank you all.
Congratulations, Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations.
Well, wait a minute, they haven't voted. Let's not get too excited here. Thank you.
We haven't voted yet. Okay, let's, hearing no further discussion, though, let's have a roll call vote.
Yeah, Nedrow,
Yes.
Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
So I guess
Motion
now it's
carries.
safe. Thank you.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
Bob.
Council, for the unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
And
thank
thank
everybody
you
for
all
making it
for showing
unanimous.
up for this.
And
I'm sorry. Well, thank you.
condolences to 5 of you, but you'll get a chance. By the way, to get on the ballot, it's, you need 20 signatures. Usually you want to get a few extras in case there's something wrong. You can pick up the nominating petitions at the village. I believe the filing date is early August.
I think it's late July,
Late July.
and they haven't got the petitions to us yet, but we should have them soon.
Yeah.
And there is 2 positions, right?
There's
There is-
5.
There are 5. There are going to be five open
Because
There is
positions.
Mr.
one thing
Dumont's
I'd like to
position
say.
is also.
Oh, okay.
My
What
wife's
are
gonna
the-
be mad because you just spoiled Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Yeah. What are the open positions? That's what
Change the
I'm-
calendar.
So there are 5 open positions. The way it works is usually every year there are 4 open positions. The top 3 vote getters get a 4-year term. The 4th vote getter gets a 2-year term. And then that way, a majority of council is always up for election every 2 years. Because Dave filled out a term for Pat Nagy, who had one of the 4-year terms, he has to run for reelection. I have to run for reelection. You're on reelection.
I'm stuck for 2 more, I think.
You're still on.
I think John's got it.
I'm running.
So you're running again. So John Scott is the other
No,
one
no, no.
who's.
No,
Mr. Malik is the other?
Mr. Malik.
Malik.
Yeah,
No,
that's right.
John Scott's the other one who's not running.
Oh, right, sorry, yeah.
So it's Nedrow and Scott aren't running, and then everybody else will need to run.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to say is I really appreciate David. He was kind of like, American Idol, where they critique everyone. Yeah, I like that, actually. You need feedback, right? But I just want to make it clear, too, that I am on 2 boards, but I'm thinking that should give me, encouragement to try to go on another board. That shouldn't disqualify me.
Sure.
So if anybody else gets on a board, I wouldn't want them to think that.
No, I think in all honesty, being on a board, serving on a board is a big positive in applying for a council position or running for a council position, because
Yeah.
that's the best way to really get to know the issues, to know what's going on, to know the process and all of that, so.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I
You know
do.
what I'm saying? Yeah.
No, it's a good point.
Thank you.
So with that, I think I would entertain motion to adjourn.
Support.
Second, Nedrow, for the discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks again,
Thank
everybody.
you, everyone. Appreciate it.